Hello and welcome to Concert Pipeline. I'm Steve Jones. Today on the program we have Conor Maynard. And Conor, if you're not familiar with him, he's a YouTube star, he's a TikTok star, he's an all-around cool dude. And I had a chance to sit down and talk to him. We had a great chat about what, the start of his career, what led him to get signed and ultimately lead that as an independent artist pretty recently. We dug into some of his music and inspirations, all the good stuff, and Conor was really generous to share his time. So we'll get into that in just a little bit. Before we do, I want to share my week and kind of what I did. I took a couple days away and went on a solo road trip. Solo-ish road trip. I mean, the road trip part of it was solo for me, but I visited with a couple of friends and got out and had some activities. And in typical fashion of what I like to do, I crammed a lot into a little bit of time. I'm like, can I make this happen? Can I do it? Can I feasibly do this? Yes. Okay. Then we're going to do it. Right. Not worrying about, my own need for sleep or health balance or what have you. I'm like, is it feasibly possible? Yeah, I'll do it. So let me expand on that. I had these activities planned, and then my kids started school and at their new schools, and we find out, oh, okay, there's a back to school night on a Tuesday and a back to school night on a Wednesday, one for each kid. And I'm like, I'm gone both of those days. I'm going to have to miss them. And I hate it. I'm a really engaged, connected parent. I like being present for my kids' stuff. I'm not the most intertwined in all of the school activities, volunteering in classroom or part of the PTA or anything like that. I'm not doing that. But I am engaged and connected with my kids and want to support them in their schooling. And also, you don't get a chance to meet your kids' teachers really anymore. You can message them maybe. I don't even know if I can do that with my daughter's teachers. I don't know how that would work. But my son's teacher I've been messaging with, but you don't get a chance to meet because parents aren't allowed on the campus, just kids. So maybe one day I'll meet my kid's teacher. I guess we'll see. I missed my opportunity there for this road trip. So the first part was driving to Nevada to visit with my old buddy Colleen, who I've known for over 20 years. We talk a lot, and we've been friends for a long time. Long time, right? I don't get to see her very often because she moved to Nevada, and I don't go there that often. But I decided, okay, sure, I'll go to Nevada to see you because she wanted to see Dave Matthews Band, which is really the one band that she likes. She likes some other music here and there, but the one band that she likes is Dave Matthews Band. And I'm more or less indifferent to Dave Matthews. His music is cool. I can get into it and listen to it. And even gearing up for this concert, I put on the Dave Matthews Essentials and listened to it while I was digging up dead grass in my backyard. Listen to it. I'm like, oh yeah, I like this song. I like this song. I like this song. And so I was like, sure, let's go to the concert. We decided to do that. But before we did, I went all the way into Nevada and I visited my friend Colleen at her house and hung out actually at one of her family's houses, and I introduced Colleen to a show called Nathan For You, which is with Nathan Fielder. We watched a handful of episodes of that. It was a lot of fun. And then we went to the Dave Matthews show, and I like being up close. We had general admission tickets, so I'm like, okay, let's go up close-ish, right? So we were like 10 people back or something, close enough to be able to see and enjoy the show. And she had seen him before at Stateline, so she knew what to expect. And she's, a big fan, seen him a good number of times. This is my third time seeing Dave Matthews, with the first being 2005, maybe, when he played Golden Gate Park, this huge, massive show there. And then 2012, I believe it was when he played in San Francisco. 2012, is that right? I don't know, 10 years ago. I don't know. It was 2016, I think. So 11 years later. and now another 6 years or so later from that, right? So so we go to the show. Cool. It was a good show, and I'll actually throw some pictures up here to share from the experience, because it was enjoyable. But the thing about Dave Matthews Band is that he doesn't play a lot of hits, right? He doesn't play a lot of his hits. He has a lot of radio hits, but he doesn't actually play them. I didn't know a lot of the music that he played. To me, it was just like, cool, jam rock. He was very awkward in between songs, which is, I guess, it's just how he is, and it's his thing. It's fine. But he would say some nonsensical thing in between songs, and he got a little bit of a laugh, and then he'd go on to the next song, right? And so my friend Colleen liked to she likes to write down every song. She likes to make her own set list. I let her know, hey, there's a website called setlist.fm that actually people from the shows add the set list. So you really don't need to write them all down, but I guess you can if you want. And I guess I should show a picture of Colleen and I from the show as well. So that's when we were just hanging out and chilling and sitting down before the show, because we knew we'd be standing for like 2.5 hours or 3 hours while he performed. So it was a good show. I had nothing against it. Was it my favorite show I've ever been to? No, not by any stretch. But I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed visiting my friend. I do want to play a couple of songs from the show, because this is Concert Pipeline. We like to bring some music in here, right? And so he opened with a cover, which was really pretty cool as well. And so I recorded part of the cover, and we're going to drop that in now. This is Dave Matthews playing "Fool in the Rain," Zeppelin cover. Here it is. "Fool in the Rain" by Dave Matthews Band here on Concert Pipeline, and so overall, a really good show that I got to go to with Dave Matthews. But the next morning, took off from Tahoe and drove down to Minden, California, and many people probably don't know Minden, but it's nearish to Fresno if we're kind of talking proximity senses, and it was hot, right? And I'm used to heat. I live in Vacaville, California, which is this next week going to hit 114 maybe is what I saw at one point. Whether it actually hits that is we'll see, but it's gonna be hot, right? And that's fine. I'm indoors. I have AC, right? But in 2 weeks, I was meeting a different buddy down in Minden to go to dove opener for dove hunting, and I'd never really been dove hunting, so but I heard this was the place to go. This is where all the doves are. You can shoot up to 15, which is awesome. Yeah, we'll get our limit within an hour or two tops, and it'll be great. But we'll get down there the afternoon before, so we have a good spot in line and can get the spot where we want to be and just hang out. But just hanging out in Minden in the heat is gross and exhausting, and it is just like a desert, right? It's sitting, and you're not running your car or anything along those lines. Well, I pulled up, my buddy had gotten there like half an hour before I did, and he set up a pop-up tent over his pickup truck. And so he sat outside and was reading a book for a while. I laid down in his pickup truck with a sun hat over my face, podcast in my ear, and was just listening to a podcast laying in his back of this pickup truck. And I was coming in and out of sleep. I felt like the vultures were swarming overhead, although it was even too hot for the vultures there to come out. So it was pretty miserable until the sun went down and it cooled down, and we had a nice little sunset to cool down to, and then I slept in my Subaru, which was I've done before. I've done it with duck hunting and what have you, but it's never the most comfortable, but you can make do. So that's kind of what happened. Is I got some restless sleep and I made do, and then we had the opener the next morning. We get up, we're let in at like 4:30 in the morning, and hunting starts at like 6. So it was slow. I'm and in transparency, I'm not the best hunter in the world. I'm getting better. But I only brought home one dove, and that was a lot of effort for one dove. Do I regret it? Not really. It was a break from work, which is nice, and just a break where I got to just spend some time alone, on the road, listening to podcasts, visiting with friends, and doing what I love. And it's fun to get out there still and shoot. I took a couple shots, and I lost one dove in tall brush. And my buddy that I went with, he shot 7 doves, so he didn't even shoot as many as he was hoping or expecting to, but he did, a lot better than I did. And I walked with one little dove that I shot in the day. So good to get out, but then it's always that feeling of like, oh man, it's nice to get home and sleep in your own bed, even after 2 days of being away and not doing it. And I drove home, right, and not 2 minutes after I got home, my daughter got home from school. So kids were already back in the mix. I wasn't even out of the garage from getting out of my car before my daughter got home. So no break, back into daddy land and handling that. My daughter's days were cut short at school because of extreme heat, and there's some air conditioning issue or something. I don't know. I don't know exactly what's going on there, but that was my week, and that was what was going on, and it was fun. It was an experience, and something I was happy to do. So let's get into Conor Maynard and my interview with him. Again, we had a really fun chat. He was super generous with his time. We were supposed to do it a week before, but he had some technical issues and timing issues, and we made it work, which is really awesome. And I thank him for making the time. So here's my interview with Conor Maynard. Yes, Conor, how is it going today?
Good, man. How are you?
I am doing good. Thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it.
All good. No worries.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for letting us reschedule as well, because last time was a nightmare, but this time we're all good. I'm on a laptop, so
you got it working. If things are flowing, we're flexible, right? So
all good.
So let's start with telling me about this upcoming tour that you have and kind of what you've put into it, how it looks, like how it came together. I mean, it's your biggest US tour yet, right?
Yeah, it is. So, I mean, kind of, this tour's been a couple of years in the making, really, because we kind of knew that I was going to do another tour shortly after my previous one, which was 2019 at the end of the year. And that was kind of North America and UK, Europe. And there was going to be Asia, Australia dates at the end of that tour. But obviously, as you know, after like end of 2019, 2020 was a bit of a different year. And obviously live shows, etc., touring absolutely couldn't happen. So essentially what originally happened was the kind of Australia/Asia leg of the tour was postponed and pushed back. And I think thankfully we hadn't actually announced the dates or started selling tickets for that part just yet. So it wasn't like we had to kind of like, go, oh no, we have to give it refunds and I promise it's postponed. We kind of just held back on it. But obviously I knew that, well, I never got to go to Australia and Asia for that tour. And obviously that was in the back of my mind that I need to do that, because originally I had kind of said that I'm definitely going to do that. And I think when we kind of came out the back of COVID, I think we kind of, like me and my manager and like my team, we kind of thought, well, rather than just going on the Asia Australia days, why don't we just do a whole other tour, like and then kind of hit everywhere. We're 3 years on now from 2019. And I've released new music, and some of that music has done really well, like online, etc. So we were like, and I didn't even have a TikTok page like on when I did the last tour, and obviously since then I've amassed almost 7 million followers on TikTok. So I think we were like, right, let's just do a whole new tour and hopefully see a bunch of familiar faces as well as a bunch of new ones as well. So yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about that. Like, how does that work for you? You don't even have TikTok, doesn't even exist, and then seemingly overnight, 7 million followers. I mean, tell me about the branding, the work involved in kind of making that happen.
Yeah, I think that like when TikTok as a platform first took off, it was quite intimidating because okay, there's all these like new creators that are blowing up and they're doing things that like, obviously when I TikTok first, when it's all kind of like the TikTok dances and the kind of the more, the kind of cliche things that it was originally known for. I personally was like, like, I don't know how I'm going to fit into this like space. Like, that's not really what I do. Like, and I couldn't really see myself doing it either. And I was just a bit like, well, it's an extremely powerful platform and I definitely, want to kind of have my space on it. But I kind of was like, well, realistically, like I make music and I enjoy making very, music based, and very singing based, content. So I was like, let me just try it. Let's see if people care. Let's see if people are entertained by it. And like, sure enough, I think my first TikTok I ever uploaded hit like 4 million views. And I was like, oh, this is good. And then so on and different things just kept kind of popping off here and there with like, just, different kind of, and I like to always kind of inject like comedy in there as well. Cause I always like kind of just like trying to be funny and like, like not being just kind of, oh, like, listen guys, I can sing. I like kind of making a joke out of myself quite a lot as well. So I kind of just mix like me being stupid and doing funny things and mixing into making music and singing and whatever. And people just seem to really enjoy it. And I found quite like a kind of pot of gold with this kind of idea of like allowing people to ask me or like tell me what to make. So like, I think my biggest TikTok is where someone says, oh, can you make a happy song out of can you make a happy song sound sad? And
you did the Whitney Houston one, right? Like
I did dance to somebody and I completely kind of like flipped on its head and I think that was kind of like I realized like, oh, that's a kind of a concept that seems to really work on TikTok. I think it's very interactive. People like to feel like that, they like to make it like they like to feel like they're being interactive with the content they're watching on TikTok, definitely more so than other platforms. So
yeah. Take me through your process a little bit when you do a cover like that, right? Like you have this original and you want to pay homage to the original, but make it your own at the same time. What is that process like for you?
It's always different. Like there's so many things that go into it. I think that like first and foremost, I've got to really like the song. I think that I struggle to. I don't ever like covering something if I don't like the original song in the first place. I need to really like the song because I want to feel it. I want to kind of like enjoy making it. And I also like base it on whether or not I think that I can, you know, do a version that's either extremely different or like still sounds really good. Like I often don't really like to cover songs that are like, if I think, oh, well, my versions are going to sound exactly the same as the original, I like to kind of sound very different from the original performer. I like to make the production most of the time sound very, very different from the original, because I kind of want it to be its own version. I want people to want to listen to my version rather than going, oh, that was a nice cover. Anyway, back to the original. I want them to listen to mine and go, oh, I prefer this version, or I want to listen to this version you know, more. So I'll kind of always try on that. And also, I guess third most, obviously at the end of the day, it's a, you know, music, it's a business. It also needs to, I also see it as a, you know, a very handy promotional tool. I'm not going to like, I probably wouldn't like cover a song that wasn't already huge. Like,
Yeah.
I will try and look for like the biggest song at the time, or like dance somebody like an absolute, you know, an undisputed classic type thing. I'll kind of go for, yeah, I like, that's kind of the two different things I'll go for. It's either got to be huge at the time or just an absolute classic. So yeah.
Sure. And do you ever hear from the artists that you cover, you know, from about the covers and like
Yeah,
positive or otherwise?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, with the Whitney Houston one, we had to because I released it as an official single, that one had to get cleared. So the Whitney Houston Foundation heard it, and they were actually really supportive of it, and they were like extremely cool with giving us the green light and allowing us to use you know, the kind of the well, allowing us to pay homage to that song. So that was really nice of them. And yeah, I've had a few different ones. I think sometimes it's also quite funny when an artist mentions, like, for example, I think like years ago, Ed Sheeran posted about a cover of a Drake song that I had done.
Uh-huh.
That's kind of random because obviously it wasn't like, you know, it was a Drake song, and Ed Sheeran made like a comment about it, but that was pretty cool. And Chris Brown once posted one of my covers of his, so that was cool. So
Yeah.
there's been some moments like that, yeah.
Yeah. Now let's go back and tell me about kind of the music dynamic in your family growing up. I know your dad performed in West End, your grandfather was a professional performer. Like, so were they influences for you? Did you kind of go to any of their performances in any sense, or kind of get anything directly from them?
No, so with my grandfather, he kind of had mainly stopped performing by the time I was born, or at least when I was old enough to like go. Although actually, funny enough, my actual my earliest ever stage performance was at the was before I had even turned 1 year old. I played a baby in one of my grandfather's plays that he was in, and but I never actually got to see it myself. And then my dad, he completely stopped performing by the time I was born. He'd completely taken a different career path by that point. But I definitely still grew up in a very like music friendly household. Like my mum and dad would still love listening to music, and like my dad was a big music fan, and we listened to all different artists when I was quite young. And I would say mainly kind of like Motown, R&B-esque, and I feel like that definitely shaped my taste in music from a very early age. And yeah, I would say that I wouldn't like say I didn't see much of them performing or anything like that, but my love for music definitely came from them. So yeah.
Yeah. And so tell me about the first concert that you went to. Do you remember who it was, and was that influential?
I actually don't. I wasn't really a big concert goer when I was young. I was a big fan of a lot of artists, but I never really went to any of their concerts. Yeah, I didn't really go to any. I think, and I actually really, really weirdly remember going to a concert when I was a lot younger, but not really enjoying it. I remember just being like, oh, like this isn't like, I didn't really like it. This isn't really for me. And I remember like only once I was kind of signed and I was kind of doing the artist thing. I think I got given tickets to a concert of an artist that was on the same label as me at the time, is a British rapper called Tiny Temper, and he was doing really well at the time. And was doing a whole bunch of shows, and I went to one of his concerts, and I remember thinking it was really cool, and I was like, yeah, like this is sick. But when I was younger, I don't think I went to barely any.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
When you started performing yourself, did you want to be on stage? Did you see that as a part of your process, or was that comfortable?
I would say I was actually really shy and nervous at first. I remember like I loved kind of, you know, recording from the comfort of my own home and being in the studio. But when it came to like getting up on stage and like having to perform, I remember at first I was terrified. I think my first ever show, I basically gripped onto the microphone stand and didn't leave it like for at any moment. But I quickly learned that like that's not the way to be. Like, if you know that the audience can kind of only really enjoy themselves as much as you are. And I think that, yeah, like for me, I basically had to realize that now I need to get out there and have fun, and only then will the audience have fun as well. So yeah.
Yeah. You had mentioned the Dance with Somebody song, and one thing that I thought was really interesting about that, it's something that sounded like was a total coincidence, or was it planned that it dropped like 10 years after Whitney passed?
It was partially coincidence and partially like so essentially we only learned like a few weeks before that it was going to be that it kind of coincidentally, because obviously music at the moment is released on Fridays, and it just happened that it fell on the Friday, and originally when the song, we were already going through like the motions of getting it cleared and getting it kind of put through. We didn't actually realize that it was the 10-year anniversary of her passing, and obviously it kind of almost felt like this like surreal, like meant to be moment, like, oh wow, like that's really kind of, that's a really strange coincidence, and kind of felt, I guess made it feel all the more special, like putting it out on that day. So yeah. So talk to me about how you built your whole, you know, online presence. I mean, you have this astronomical presence, and I mean, online you have billions of views for your videos. Like, where did that start for you? When did it start to seem real to kind of get to that point, and that this was something you could do? Well, I guess it started originally as a hobby. I enjoyed like recording music and putting it up online, and you know, and it was mainly for my like friends and family to watch it. And then obviously over time it started to get the attention of people that I didn't know, and you know, people that weren't from my hometown, they weren't even from my country, they were from all over the world, and people just seemed to like it. And then I guess over time of doing that and realizing what works and what doesn't, and kind of what seems to connect and what people seem to not like, was just like a learning curve. Like I just would take in as much as I could as I went, and it led to me having a pretty good idea of what worked online. Now there's still things that come along and annoy you and shock you, and like you have a video that you so believe is going to work and then it doesn't, and then one video you literally took 10 minutes throwing together and then that one blows up and you're like, I mean, like, this is so annoying. That can still happen, but I've definitely learned a lot of like strong promotional techniques. And I often I will say to a lot of people, a lot of artists that are up and coming or artists that want advice, that sometimes is more important than like any aspect of it. I think, you know, music, like if you're trying to be an artist, music will still be at the center. Like you still need to make great music. I wouldn't say you can make it without making like music that people are definitely going to love or like, but being able to promote that music is almost equally as important. Like you need to be able to promote yourself and get yourself out there and get people to basically care. They need to care that like about listening to you, and that bit can be really difficult. And you know, I don't claim to be the best in the world at it, otherwise I'd be the most famous person on the planet. But I think that I definitely learned a thing or two about it kind of along the way. So yeah. And your sing-offs are really unique and creative. Like, how much planning goes into that? Is it improvised? Like, I mean, it's no, yeah, a lot of work and a lot of planning goes into those. I think sometimes the downfall of them, especially trying to plan them and organize them, is the fact that a lot of people, like kind of like you just said, they think that it's improvised off the cuff, and I mean, it'd be great to give that a try, but I'm a massive perfectionist, and I want to make sure that it's like the strongest showcase of both people in that video. And obviously I call it a sing off and I make it competitive. It's not, it's meant to be entertaining, and people are meant to like listen and enjoy. I don't like, no one's a winner really. We just both have a great time. But a lot of the time, like I remember, I think it was Nick Jonas's team, or it was either Joe Jonas or Nick Jonas. It was quite a few years ago. I can't remember. He was doing one of them was doing a press junket in London. And I think his management reached out to my management. We'd love to do a sing off with Conor to promote like his new single or something. And obviously we were like 100%, that'd be so cool. Like, and then they were like, oh yeah, we've got an allotted 10 minutes like on one of these days. And we were like, oh no, these take hours. Yeah. Like we get all the audio like recorded in a studio, recorded properly, and then we film the video, and that will normally take quite a lot of takes because it's quite a lot to remember unless you've like rehearsed it. Normally we'll film it right after the recording session, so you won't remember all of it, so you kind of almost have to like keep doing it over and over again to remember it. Like it takes like, I would say minimum like 2-3 hours. And they had put like 10 minutes aside, and we were just like, oh, it's never going to work. And they were like, oh, yeah, no, sorry, we haven't got 2-3 hours. And we were just like, oh, okay, so it didn't happen. But yeah, no, a lot of planning, a lot of work goes into them. So yeah, and also the 3 hours I would say is from the other artists. Like that's their time. I have to put the whole thing together before that, so that can often take a whole day. If it's like some songs can be really tricky to find loads of songs that work perfectly over them. I actually my most recent one with Harvey, the sing off As It Was by Harry Styles, is quite a tricky song because the song's very fast. So to find songs that fit over it, that don't sound too quick and don't sound whatever, it was quite tricky to find ones that worked. So that one took hours to get perfect.
I mean, they just flow and connect so well, and it has this feel, like you said, like where it feels improvised, but it also, you can tell there's a level of work that goes into it, and that
and I think a really good like really good proof of like that, like it is very difficult and it takes hours, is once the sing off thing started, a lot of other people started doing it, and obviously that was really flattering, really cool, but you can go and watch them. Some of them are not good at all. And like I think it made a lot of people realize it's really difficult, it's really tricky to find songs that work well and flow together and seem like almost seamlessly go into one another. And like you need to know which part of the song to like put where. Like it can be really tricky. And I think a lot of people, when they went to do it, I realized like a lot of people realized, oh yeah, this is actually a lot harder than it looks. So yeah.
And you've done them with both of your siblings, right? And so
I have, one with Jack, one with Anna. Yeah.
Do they have common sensibilities, like in terms of pulling those together in their voices? Like, I mean, do they sing also? And
I mean, my brother took a little bit more work.
Yeah.
My sister can sing really well, and she makes her own music as well. She releases her own videos, so music is something that she's definitely loves doing. So but that was quite a few years ago, though. She was probably quite young when I can't remember how old she would have been when we did that, but it was definitely like, I think like 2016, so about 6 years ago. She would have been about 14, 15 maybe when we did it. So I think she definitely want to redo one now if she could. I think my brother would pass. I don't think he'll bother doing another one. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to make those, and people seem to really like them, which was cool. So yeah.
Yeah. So your debut album, Contrast, I mean, tell me about kind of going in and pulling this together as an album. And I want to kind of hear kind of your perspective from now, really, because my understanding is you don't know if you'll make another album anytime soon. You're really driving singles because of the way people listen to music now, right? So where were you then versus kind of where you're at now in terms of?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously back then I was signed to a major record label, and that was kind of the way things were done. You record an album, you pick the singles, you released 1 or 2 or 3 singles, and you drop your album. It was kind of, that was the way everyone did it. And obviously I was no different. I was 19 years old. I was basically just doing as I was told, really. Like, and obviously not like I was kind of like this person who's like, okay, like I obviously enjoyed it, and I understood that's the way things mainly were at that point, and seemed to work. And then fast forward to now, it's just so different. I'm independent now. So I kind of make all my own decisions regarding my own music. And as I said, like, as you said, I think the consumption of music is so different now. People are much more likely to cherry pick. And I think that, only like realistically the kind of top tier of artists, like your Harry Styles, Adele, Ed Sheeran, only they get kind of a look in when it comes to album releases. You don't really hear of like other album releases. And I think that, for me, I wouldn't want to release an album unless, people were really, really waiting for it and had that kind of big hype around it. And I think the only way to create that hype is by having a single or like, a song that really connects. And that's kind of the plan. I think for me, it's just to keep releasing singles and music until something really, really, really connects. I've had like music that's done really well and had a great impact for me, but still waiting for that kind of like undeniable, like oh, this song is absolutely flying type thing. So, and it's really difficult. And obviously, as I said, I'm independent, so it's really difficult, like almost impossible. So I just obviously rely on all the platforms I have, things like TikTok, things like YouTube, like anything can randomly go viral, if it's good enough. So yeah.
Yeah. And so speaking of putting out singles, you put out AMTH Careless Whisper, the Careless Whisper video last week.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool and creative. Like, tell me about that process.
So that's, so his name is Anth, and he's
I'm sorry.
No, good, no worries. So he's one of my really close friends. We've been making music together for a long time, and Corey Niel is also on the track as well. He's a friend of mine and Anth, so we make a lot of music together. We write a lot of music together. And yeah, I think it was like a while ago, like a good few years ago, Anth had this idea that he wanted to. He's always loved that kind of the song Careless Whisper by George Michael, and my mum actually, funny enough, has always been a huge George Michael fan. I remember always kind of loving that song, and Ant said, oh, like we should do a modern day version of it. And I was always a bit like, at first I was like, no, I don't know, like, I don't know if people would care, blah, blah. And it's kind of annoying really, because he had this idea years ago, and then all of a sudden on TikTok, that kind of part, that part of that bridge of the song just blew up on TikTok. And then Ant was like, see, I told you, like people love that song. And I was like, okay, yeah, you're right, let's do it. And we recorded it a while ago, and we shot the video a while ago, and then we just didn't release it for ages. I don't know if you can like notice, but I like changed my hair color like back in April, and we actually recorded the video before that because my hair is still brown in the music video for Careless Whisper. So we've been sitting on the song and the video for quite a while, and then we just thought, well, listen, we're about to go on tour together. Me and Anth are about to go on tour together. And like, why not perform that song in the set? If we put it out and people like it, we put it out and people seem to love it. And that was like really, really cool that people took such a liking to it, seeing as, we kind of ummed and ahed about it for so long. So
yeah. Well, most importantly, even more than the millions of people on TikTok, did your mom like it?
She loved it. I actually sent it to her when I finished it, and she was a big fan of it. So yeah, that was all I needed really.
yeah, you got the support you need there, which is awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how kind of much of a drive was winning the MTV's Brand New Award? Like, how much did that kind of elevate your career? Yeah,
that was just like, I think for me that was a sign of what was to come. I think that when, up until that point, I kind of had no idea the strength that my fan base possessed. I had no idea up until that point. I think that I probably would have shied away from a lot of competitions. I would have shied away from a lot of like fan voted things, because I'd always be a bit like, I don't know, are they going to vote for me? I see the views and stuff, but does that mean they're going to take the time to vote? I had no idea. And then obviously I was put in the shortlist for MTV's Brand New 2012, and it was up against like artists that were kind of doing well at that point, and I was kind of, well, a lot of artists that were just starting, and some were a little bit further than others. And I remember being put in that list, being like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to win, blah, blah, blah. And I can't really remember the figures, but I think it was something insane. Like we took over like 80% of all the votes.
Wow.
It was like a landslide type victory type thing. And I remember just being like, wow, like, I couldn't believe like how much the fans had gone in on that kind of competition. And yeah, I won. And then things just kept going. We're just up from there at the time. I remember like my first single went to number 2 in the UK charts. And then I had kind of another single that went top 10 or top 5, I think it's top 5 in the UK. Then my album went to number 1 in the UK. And then I had 3 other singles after that all went top 10 or top 5. And yeah, things were just kind of flying in that era. And it like that MTV's Brand New was such like I would say that was a massive starting point for kind of that. I would say that was a starting point for my shift from online to mainstream.
Yeah.
That was kind of the first moment where I remember feeling like, oh, I've made an impact in something that's definitely mainstream. Like MTV, that's definitely at the time was definitely like that. This feels very mainstream type thing. It feels very like not within the norm of like my whole like, oh, like I'm doing an online thing type thing. So yeah, it was pretty cool. So yeah.
Yeah. And going independent, did that feel natural to you, or was that a decision you mulled over for a long time to kind of get to this point?
I would just say that like I think it got to the point over the years where like just being on a major label didn't work for like what I was doing and what I was becoming. I was, you know, as the world of social media was getting bigger and bigger, and obviously I started on social media, and a lot of my friends were like YouTubers and creators and influencers. I kind of almost became this kind of hybrid of like content creator and musician. And the label could only really cater for the musician side of things, but both were becoming equally as important for me. And I just felt like being an artist on a major label wasn't right for me anymore. Like I was kind of doing all these other things. And yeah, I think after like a while, I was like, yeah, I want to become independent and kind of take the steering wheel of my own career. And obviously it took a while. It took about 5 years of going back and forth over legal things, because obviously parting ways with a major record label is not a easy task.
Yeah.
A lot of people have their own interests in what they want coming out of a deal like that. So I think that obviously, yeah, it took a while, but you know, we got there in the end. I remember it was quite frustrating that I kind of came out of the deal about 2 weeks before we went into the first lockdown.
Yeah.
It's like, great timing. Like I think, but you know, it all worked out in the end. So yeah. And obviously I can't really complain. Much bigger problems than that at the time. So yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, any sort of breakup, whether it's with a label or with someone, is a challenge, right? And I mean, that's you've talked about What I Put You Through being your most personal song. Like, how do you kind of get to that point where you're comfortable letting yourself go and be vulnerable in that sense that you did with that song?
Well, I would say, I don't know. I think when you're going through, like for me personally, like going through a situation that I was struggling with that badly, with that particular breakup, like it was almost the only thing I could do that could remotely give me any relief in that time. Like being able to talk about it, being able to create something about it and be honest and actually feel like I was singing something that meant something to me was like really fulfilling, and like really kind of helped me like process, like, you know, the pain I was going through at the time, like the struggle I was having with kind of my mental health at that time. And like, it just allowed me to put all my cards on the table and say what I wanted to say, even though I couldn't actually speak to the person at the time. And yeah, I think what's quite interesting, a lot of people always ask, like, oh, you know, how, like, it must be really difficult to become that vulnerable, or like, it must be really hard for you to, like, you know, and it's like, well, that period of time was really hard, but actually being in the studio and being able to write about it, that was actually like, it felt really good. It felt like something I wanted to do, and it felt like, it just, yeah, as I said, it felt like a release. It felt like a form of relief, being able to, like, I would say that the difficult part would be the fact that it was like, I wanted it to be perfect because of that reason. I wanted to make sure the lyrics were so spot on with how I felt. And I wanted I wanted it to feel exactly how I felt. And whether that be lyrically or sonically, I wanted it to kind of really hit home. And that made obviously a little bit more of a difficult process. I felt way more precious over the song. And then obviously it made it a bit more scary to release it, because I was like, oh, if no one likes it, that's going to be a massive blow to me, because like this song means a lot to me. And if people then just like, oh yeah, it's all right. It's like, oh, that kind of sucks. But yeah, it's been my most successful independent release to date. So really cool.
And so with all of the attention that you put into your music, you were able to actually write a book. And tell me about that process for you. Was that something that you decided to do, or?
The book was a long time ago. That feels like another lifetime ago. I would say I think that was like 2013. So I kind of barely really remember. The book definitely needs an update.
Need another one.
But you know, I think a lot of the reason behind that was like, during that time, that kind of like rise to kind of being the public eye from being like a YouTube singer was quite unheard of around that time. It wasn't very common. It wasn't seen as like a normal thing to do. And I think that, you know, a lot of people wanted to hear the story, like how it kind of all came about and how it happened. And I was like, cool, I'll put it all in a book and you can read it and see how it all happened. But yeah, it definitely needs a sequel at some point.
You think you'd do that again anytime soon, or?
I don't know. I really don't know. I wouldn't kill off the possibility of it. I think there definitely would be a possibility should I feel like the timing was right and I felt like people would, want to read about it. I think definitely. So yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So a couple more things before we wrap. You, like I said, you have a tour that's coming to California. Have you been to California? Have you toured California before?
Yes, yeah. I actually used to live in LA. I lived in LA for
right.
I lived in LA for about 3 years between 2017 up until the very end of 2019. So yeah.
Oh, okay. Did you in the Bay Area? Have you played shows up here?
Have I played in the Bay Area? I'm right in thinking is San Francisco.
San Francisco. Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, my USA geography is not incredible, but
Oh,
yeah,
you're good.
I have. Yeah, I did a show. Right, I done like a radio thing in San Fran like years ago, and then I did a show in is Oakland is kind of close to.
Yeah. Yep.
The show in Oakland, my last tour. Yes, I did a show there on my last tour. So, but this will be my first tour like my own tour concert in San Francisco. So yeah, you're playing the Great American Music Hall. That's a cool cool venue. It's really cool. I mean, it's got a great balcony and a good open floor, old style. Like, I mean, it's a good space, so I think you'll like it. Well, that should be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it, definitely.
Yeah. So as we wind out, one thing that I wanted to kind of wrap with, and you kind of started telling me you wanted to kind of bring humor into your music to a sense, and one thing that I saw was the Tom Holland video, which I thought was pretty great. So
yeah,
tell me how that came about, and is that do you like to prank your friends and stuff too? So
that video was a lot of fun. So essentially, the way that came about was my friend Josh Peters, who is a YouTuber. He I think he was just doing a bunch of press junkets at the time, interviewing different talent. I think that the interview with Tom Holland was kind of put forward to him. The opportunity was put forward to him, and I think he kind of knew, well, Tom Holland's a very big deal, and was kind of a video he didn't want to just be like, oh, I'll just do a regular interview. I think he wanted to make it funny, he wanted to make it a bit more interesting. And at that point, I had already met Tom, and I'd had quite a good relationship with Tom already, because I actually randomly met Tom out like before he had actually before Spider-Man had been released. I think he'd already been cast as Spider-Man. I'm not sure if he had already filmed it. I can't remember, but it definitely hadn't come out yet. So he wasn't kind of Tom Holland at that point. He was just my mate Tom, young Tom that I met in random club it was actually the Box in London, which is a really kind of, I say random, it was actually a really famous club in London. But we were there and we were chatting. I remember him saying like, oh, like, I think he said he liked one of my songs, Are You Crazy? And he was, oh, how does it feel like kind of being a part? I was like, mate, I mean, you're about to find out. Like, I'm pretty sure you're about to surpass me, like next level type thing. And so obviously when my friend Josh had this opportunity with Tom, he asked me, because he was like, well, you've already met Tom, so like it kind of creates a little bit of familiarity, so it's not like too intense that we're just pranking him and he might feel a bit like, well, what's going on? But I kind of knew in the back of my head as well that Tom is someone that definitely would be all right with that anyway. He would definitely take the banter and he'd be absolutely fine with it. He had an earpiece in, and me and Casper, who's also in the video, Casper Lee, who's another big YouTuber who's like best friends with Josh, we were just telling him ridiculous things to say to Tom, and Tom took it like a champ, and it was a lot. It was a lot of fun. So yeah.
And
that video went like
crazy.
That video did so well, and it kind of every now and then I'll just see it pop up on my For You page on TikTok. So that video continues to like go viral every now and then. So it is quite funny. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure from Tom's perspective, it's like, I mean, you're doing these 6-minute interviews in a junket style format. Someone comes in and you're like, okay, I don't know if I'm being paid.
I would agree. I would say it's probably like a nice relief.
Yeah, exactly. And good to see people as well. So yeah. Well, Conor, thank you for taking the time today. I definitely appreciate it, and I want to wish you luck on this tour. I mean, this is going to be great, and all your ventures ahead. So.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you. Really nice to talk to you.
Be back at you. You have a great one, okay?
You too. Have a good one.
Thanks.
In a bit.
Thanks. That was the interview with Conor Maynard here on Concert Pipeline. And that takes us to the final segment on the program, the music. we have, you know, we have really one big music news story. There's a little one that we'll lead into it with, but the big one has to do with this guy, Mr. Dave Grohl, over my shoulder. So the little story is The Weeknd lost his voice and canceled his LA show mid-song. He said, "I don't want to stop the show, but I can't give you the concert that I want to give you right now." There was a sold-out crowd at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, so a lot of people there. It was, I think, his first song that he did. Can't Feel My Face. He was in the middle of playing that when his voice went out. He then stopped the show and he said, "I'm going to make sure everybody's good, get your money back, and I'll do a show real soon for you guys. But I wanted to come out and personally apologize and not tweet it or Instagram it. I wanted you guys to know that I can't give you what I can give you. I apologize. I'm so sorry. I love you guys so much." And he posted a brief statement on Twitter, so, you know, to that same day, same degree. He said he promised he'll make up a new date, and those shows were on his 2022 tour and support his most recent albums that he's got rolling out. So, you know, bummer for the fans that were there to see The Weeknd. But something big that happened this weekend was the first of two Taylor Hawkins tribute concerts. The first one being at Wembley Stadium in England, and man, what I wouldn't have given to be there. That would have been so cool. I was watching it live when it was happening, and then I saw some clips afterwards. I didn't watch the whole thing because it was 6 hours long, but I was watching parts that I could, and then I checked other parts afterwards. And I mean, what an incredible experience. So many amazing musicians got together to pay tribute to Taylor Hawkins of the Foo Fighters, and celebrate his life and what he loved and their connection with him. There's layers to this story, and I mean, it's just a front page of all the music news is this concert. So this is kind of what we're hitting. So I want to start with kind of going through, you know, who was there and who played what, and the set list, because it was ultimately a 50 song set over the course of the afternoon and evening. It started at 4:30 p.m. and went to who knows how long. But there were so many amazing musicians there that performed and playing great songs. So the Foo Fighters played with Liam Gallagher, Rock and Roll Star and Live Forever, Oasis covers, which was cool. Nile Rodgers, Chris Chaney, and Omar Hakim did some Bowie covers, Let's Dance and Modern Love, and Josh Homme came out and sang on one of those songs. Chevy Metal, which was Taylor Hawkins' side band, played a couple of songs. They did a Talking Heads cover and a T-Rex cover, and Justin Hawkins, Josh Freese, and the Coattail Riders played a couple of songs. Wolfgang Van Halen, Dave Grohl, Justin Hawkins, and Josh Freese did On Fire, Van Halen cover, and Hot for Teacher, also a Van Halen cover. Pretty awesome. Dave Grohl's daughter took the lead on some songs, and Dave Grohl played with her. I mean, he got behind the drums, which is, it's just always awesome to see Dave on drums as well. He had some other folks in there, Greg Kirsten, who he works with on the Hanukkah sessions. They did a couple Jeff Buckley covers. Supergrass played a couple songs. Them Crooked Vultures took the stage and did an Elton John cover. Queens of the Stone Age cover. The Pretenders featured Dave Grohl and did a couple of songs. James Gang did some songs, and Dave Grohl hopped in on that. Dave Grohl was mixed throughout this whole afternoon and evening. And Violet Grohl, Mark Ronson, and some others did a cover. Then came some heavy hitters, right? We're getting into the evening, and there were heavy hitters. And Brian Johnson, Lars Ulrich from Metallica, and the Foo Fighters did Back in Black by AC/DC and Let There Be Rock. Stuart Copeland and the Foo Fighters did a couple songs, including Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic. Let's see. Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson of Rush kind of played a couple of songs with Dave Grohl, and Brian May, Roger Taylor of Queen, Rufus Taylor, and the Foo Fighters did "We Will Rock You." They did "Under Pressure," "Somebody to Love." They did a bunch of Queen songs, and that was awesome. And then the Foo Fighters set came when it was a short set with just the Foo Fighters, 7 songs it looks like, but they did "Times Like These," "All My Life," "The Pretender," "Monkey Wrench," "The Pretender," Travis Barker on drums, as well as Monkey Wrench, "Learn to Fly," Mandy Bushell on drums, the amazing, she's not 12 or something, I believe, drummer that had a drum off with Dave Grohl during COVID, and she's the sweetest girl, and just like this powerhouse on the drums, right? Paul McCartney, Chris Hind, Dave Grohl, and Omar Hakim and Pat Smear did a couple songs, including "Helter Skelter." Paul McCartney had never done "Oh Darling." He played that live. The Foo Fighters did 3 more songs: "Aurora," "My Hero," featuring Taylor Hawkins, Insane. This is one of the headlines as well. We'll get into. And then "Everlong" they closed with the 50th song of the evening. Of course, they closed with "Everlong." So let's talk about Paul McCartney first. He wasn't listed. I'm pretty positive Paul McCartney wasn't listed on the tribute concert, on the lineup. So he was a surprise guest. He's in England, right? He's in the backyard and he's friends with Dave Grohl. Of course, Paul will show up. That's awesome. That would have been such a cool surprise and delight to see Paul McCartney live. Oh yeah, so he was a surprise guest, and what he did on the stage was an even bigger shock to the audience, as he'd never sang the Abbey Road Ballad live on stage before. So cool for him to do that. He said, "God bless Taylor. Me and Chrissy are going to do a song here that I haven't done since recorded it 100 years ago. I've never done it as a duet, but we're going to do it for the first time for you." And the Foo Fighters were the backing band for this song, of course. So he hung around to perform "Helter Skelter" with the Foo Fighters, and they're just a revolving door of all-star drummers. Let's see here. Yeah, them Crooked Vultures was a reunion that happened. So many super groups in the evening. It was just so cool to see. So and then again, check out the video of Taylor Hawkins' son Shane performing "My Hero" with the Foo Fighters, and just him and Dave Grohl having this amazing rapport, and Shane fucking beating those drums like nobody's business. His dad would have absolutely been proud of what he brought to that drum kit, and you could feel the emotion behind him. And so they they play. It was just amazing to see him kind of take the drums and in his father's footsteps there. I didn't know. I'm not familiar with Shane, so I don't know his drumming history or what have you, but he did a great freaking job. And so there's going to be another tribute show on September 27th at the Los Angeles Kia Forum. If hasn't happened yet, and I mean it's very, very sold out, but they released some tickets like right before for this one in England. So I'm really hopeful that they'll release some, and I mean, because I would do just about anything to be at that show and be there and present and close to for this momentous occasion. I'm a big Foo Fighters fan, in case you hadn't noticed, and it would be an amazing show. It would be cool. So, and I would love to bring some of that content back to Concert Pipeline as well. So, as I was watching some of these performances, and I'm thinking, what does the future of the Foo Fighters look like without Taylor Hawkins? Because I don't know. I don't know if the band can go on. That he was such a great part of the Foo Fighters, such a pivotal part of the Foo Fighters. It was him and Dave, and then the rest of the band, really, right? He's Dave's brother from another mother, and so I don't know if they will go on, but if they do, they should definitely bring in one of the one of the drummers that performed that night, either Nandy Bushell or Taylor Hawkins' own son Shane as their permanent drummer. That is my recommendation. Yeah, so that is our show for today. We're gonna close out with one actually a long song. So this is Dave from Dave Matthews, and he does a jam rock thing, right? And so he'll make his songs really long in some cases. He did Jimmy Thing, and I recorded, I don't know, 10 or 12 minutes of it. I think it finished a minute or two later. I was like, is this song ever end? I don't know, but I'm going for it. I'm pushing through, and I recorded the as much as I could of Jimmy Thing from the Dave Matthews Show, and it was pretty awesome. So I think it's a smooth way to kind of to end here this episode of Concert Pipeline. So thank you for tuning in. Next week on the program we have Haley and the Crushers. So have that interview to look forward to. For all of us here at Concert Pipeline, I'm Steve Jones. We'll catch you next time.
Smoke my mind, let me feel better for this small.